I was in a Keller mastermind a couple months ago, and this is something I've heard him share multiple times before, but it really hit me this last time. And it was this perspective of what a life by design actually looks like. And we've talked about this, that the conversation we're going to have today, when it comes to the Real Estate Mastery podcast, is really about how do we create a really valuable business, but also still have time freedom, right? When it comes to wealth building and financial freedom, ultimately, it's actually not about the money. It's about having freedom of time. So how can we get very efficient and effective with our business so that we can live life the way that we want to? And one of the things that he talked about is how most people are subscribed to this kind of dynamic. And Hunter, you might have to help me with, oh, no, we can use this one. We're good. So he said this is kind of the life cycle that most people subscribe to, which is that they have this time of life that they're really focused on learning. What kind of age range do you feel like people are in this category of life, where they're really focused on education? 0 to 20, right? Maybe even 0 to 25, depending on how much schooling they do beyond high school and first years of college, right? And then they move into this second stage of life, which is all about earning, right? Or work. And for most people, the challenge is that they either work 40 hours or more than 40 hours a week, right? They actually spend more time in their work environment than they do with their family, oftentimes. And then the ultimate stage that people are aiming for is playtime, which is this last season of life, right? And so if you were to put this kind of age range together, probably 25 to 65-ish timeline, and then people usually look at playtime as 65 plus or whenever they're retired, right? Now, what Gary had shared was interesting is he said what we should be aiming to do is actually flipping this model up on its side. So we should have learn time, we should have work or earn time, and then we should have playtime. And this is actually just like a calendar through our week, saying we're going to schedule these things throughout the week or throughout the months of our life. And instead of delaying the gratification or the experience of playtime, like how can we put those hobbies, put those things that are important to us, put our family time on the calendar? And so the reason why I share this with you is because this is really what a lot of our conversation is going to be about today, which is actually number 4 over here on the wall of our 6 personal perspectives, which is how do we make being learning-based a strategic advantage in business, okay? Oftentimes people will get into an industry and they will get to this place where they feel like, I've got it, like I know it all, right? And that actually can be one of the challenges to being more effective and more efficient in business. So the conversation today is really about not how do you work harder this year to hit your goals, it's how do you work smarter to hit your goals faster so you have more time to do the things that are most important to you, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest for today's session, but just keep this in mind as we have this conversation, is this is ultimately so that you can have more flexibility, more freedom with what you're wanting to build in your career. So today's guest is not only a top producing agent in the state of Utah, but also a partner at our KW Cedar Valley location. She recently graduated from the University of Utah with her master's degree in real estate development. Her commitment to client service, continuous education, and mindset of abundance has led her to build a massively successful business. Outside of her professional life, she enjoys spending time with her husband, Ben, and 4 children, and indulging in her love for books and cooking. Her passion for travel, especially her love for Europe, further enriches her dynamic personality. And today we get the opportunity to hear how she does it all and seems to have no limits. Please help me welcome Courtney Nielsen.
Hi,
Courtney. So this is going to be fun, and I actually want to just kind of start with your backstory because it's unique, it's different. Jumping into real estate, you were a teacher for how many years?
Probably about 10 or 11 years.
Okay. And what age group did you work with?
So I I had a couple of different age groups actually. So I taught high school English. And so I mostly taught ninth grade and 12th grade. So I had the bookends. But then I also taught at the college level. So I taught English 1010 and English 2010 at Salt Lake Community College for, I don't know, 10 years.
Cool. So awesome. Now, if I remember correctly, because you and Ben, obviously worked more on your commercial arm for you guys' business. You work hand in hand as partners, but kind of just walk me through, because it seems like you guys had some, dipped your toe in the water of real estate prior to the 2008 timeline. And then you got back into real estate. So just kind of walk us through that whole backstory and journey.
Yeah. So when you ask about my journey into real estate, it's kind of a loaded question because I feel like it's been a lifelong journey to get to where I am. So I grew up in a small town in Nevada. My dad was in real estate. My aunt's in real estate. I have cousins. So it's kind of been like a family thing. But I moved up here to go to BYU and read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and was like, oh my gosh, I got to do real estate investing. So I graduated it from BYU and I had a baby a couple months later. And at that time I decided, hey, I'm going to get my real estate license. But so I was going to real estate classes with a newborn 22 years ago today. My daughter was born 22 years ago today. Today's her birthday. So it's just funny that you asked me about that, because 22 years, that's a long time. But funny thing is, the classes back then were live. We didn't have an online option, and it was kind of tricky going to school with a newborn. And so I ended up quitting real estate. I had a degree in English, so I was like, well, I'm going to do that. So I ended up actually, Ben and I actually, if you don't know, Ben's my husband. So Ben and I actually started a construction company, and he was traveling a lot, building churches all over the United States. And I decided to go back and get a master's degree in English, or in teaching pedagogy, so that I could teach high school, because with an undergrad in English, you can't really do anything besides maybe, I don't know, go to grad school or work. As the dean said on our graduation day, congratulations, you can now get a job at McDonald's. So anyway, so we had this business. I was in school. I finished that degree and went to teach school. Actually, a couple years later, I actually went and taught school. So the crash happened, the economic crash of 2007. And we were in this weird spot, and we're like, what are we going to do? And so we actually jumped into doing some short sales at that time. So Ben and I were flipping houses and buying real estate. And our first deal, we made, I think, like $19,000, which was pretty cool. But lending laws, everything was changing at that time. And so we found that for what we were trying to do, it was kind of tricky, and I would need to get a real estate license. So then I went back to school again to get my real estate license. And but I don't know, life was crazy at the time. So instead of finishing that, I went and got a job teaching high school. And so I did that for a while. During this time, Ben had a massive heart attack. And even though I had a master's degree and we were making $36,000 a year, as a teacher, I was very unhappy teaching. I loved the students. I love teaching. I love all of that aspect. But I'm like, oh my heck, I have a master's degree and I'm making $36,000 a year. That sucks. And, we had gone from making six figures down to that. And Ben's health was in a weird place at the time, and he was trying to heal from that. But I try to not look for the regret in things, wishing that I would have kept down that path 22 years ago, because I feel like my journey has, I'm grateful for that journey that's led me to this place where I'm at today. I don't know why I'm crying. So, let's see, back to our journey. So, okay. So Ben had a heart attack. He got better. He's like, I'm going to restart our construction company. So he restarted that. He was off traveling again. And this is when I was like, I'm going to get my real estate license for real. And so I finished real estate school, and that was in 2012. And at the end of that school year, I had this, I was like, well, actually, the school year ended and I laid in bed for one solid week. I couldn't get out of bed. I was like, I'm so tired. I'm so worn out. I just need a week. Ben would come in like every day. He's like, are you going to gonna get up today? And I'm like, nope, I'm going to lay here all day and tomorrow too. And the next day. So for a full week, I laid in bed. And then after that week, I was like, all right, I'm getting up. I'm going to go sell some real estate. And I had this goal. I had to sell a house that summer. So I didn't go back to teaching that fall. I did get my first listing. We did get it under contract, but then the sellers canceled. So I put my license on inactive status and I went back to school. And a whole year went by. And that summer again, I was like, all right, here we go again. So I reactivated my license. Not really much happened that summer until one of my teacher friends like called me up one day and she's like, hey, Court, you have a real estate license, right? I was like, yeah. She's like, hey, do you think you can open a door for me? We're not really serious about looking, to buy, but can you open this door? I don't want to call another agent who's like, does it all the time because I don't want to be pressured into buying a house. Sure. I was like, well, can we schedule it for the end of the week? Because I didn't have a real estate key. I didn't have any of that yet. So I had to get all of that taken. She didn't know that. I just said, let's do it on Friday. And, it took me 2 days to get a key. And back then you didn't have an app. It was like a physical key. So I had to go down and get a key. Anyway, by the end of that week, we were showing houses. The next month we were under contract. I had our house listed. And then the next a month or so later, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law were like, hey, we want to buy a lot. So I helped them buy a lot, helped them sell their house. And all this time, Ben I think he was in Pennsylvania at the time, or maybe in Texas, I don't know, building a church. And we're like, hey, you should quit that and let's come home. Stop traveling. He'd been gone like half our marriage, missed a ton of kids' sports and all the things. And it's time for us to be home and to be together. So he came home. He gave away all of his contracts, and it's a family business. Lots of his cousins and uncles are in the business too. So he gave them to them, came home, and he got his real estate license. Again, he actually had been licensed before. And this is word to the wise. Don't let your license expire because you have to go through the whole thing again. And that sucks. So anyway, he did that. And I continued to resell. I was still teaching school though. I hadn't taken that leap to fully leave it. It was kind of scary to leave that security, and Ben actually, because of his building background, he felt like a natural fit for him was to go work for a builder. So he did that for 3 or 4 years while I continued to resell. And in 2016, I finally left teaching and dove right into real estate. And I really felt at that time, my value, I needed to learn everything I possibly could about real estate. I am a lifelong learner. I love school. It could be like my third part-time job if I wanted it to be. Well, it has been for most of our marriage. And so I dove in. I was taking classes. I basically, at the brokerage where I was at the time, they didn't have an Ignite program, but they had a similar program, and I just went all into that. Then I also took a bunch of designation courses, and yeah, that's where I am. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well,
sorry for such a long background.
No, that was great. It's good backstory. And I think a few things that I'm curious about, if you were to maybe just walk back to that time, 2016, when it's it started to really get serious.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, what did you actually foresee with your real estate business? What were you wanting to create? What were you wanting to for it to evolve into? I think everybody getting into the industry has very different, visions for what they want to create. And then we'll kind of fast forward to today. And I'm curious if you actually saw, where you're at now, because you have a really big business. And oftentimes we don't see our potential. We maybe see like a lower version of what's possible, but then we break through those ceilings and we're like, holy crap, I had no clue this was what's possible. So just curious about all of that.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So in 2016, I think I was more looking, okay, so I told you my oldest daughter's 22. We have 4 kids. So we have 22, 20-year-old, and an 18-year-old. And then we had a surprise in 2014, our sweet little angel, Emma. And so I was actually doing real estate, and I was taking care of a little person, plus teenagers who were in sports and school and all this stuff. So I really was looking at it, and Ben was killing it in new construction. He was the top agent for Woodside Homes. He was selling a lot of homes. So I didn't really have to sell a lot of real estate at the time. But I wanted to because I loved it. It was so fun. And so everything that I was making was kind of like gravy. So for me, I was more looking at it as like a part-time thing, even though I was doing it more full-time. But I had a 2-year-old that I was raising, you know. So for me, I didn't really see the vision. It took me a good while. Like I really wish, honestly, if I could go back in time, which again, I'm grateful for the journey I've been on, but I really wish I would have found Keller Williams. I knew about Keller Williams. Ben had been at Keller Williams before. I really wish I would have made the jump over to Keller Williams first, because that really would have the 5 years or so of me on this path. Like I was like kind of on on my own learning, even though I was taking classes and things, but you just don't have the support system in other brokerages that you do here. And the education that we have here, the pathways to success that we have here, I wish that I had that. So, yeah, I really didn't, I didn't see myself hitting it super hard until, so Ben was actually leaving that and he's like, hey, let's work together. Actually, he was leaving Woodside and he was going to go work for another builder for a little bit. And there was going to be a little bit of a dip in our income that year. And so he's like, hey, Court, if you want to keep living at this level that we've been living at the last few years, like you're going to have to make up $100,000 difference. And up to that point, I had been selling, I don't know, 5 or 6 homes a year, making, I don't know, $50,000, $60,000. And I was like, 100,000. Okay, I can do that. And so that first year, I made my first $100,000 because I wanted that. Like there was a why there, you know? And then he decided, hey, I'm going to leave this builder. Why don't we work together? Now we had to make 3 times the amount. So for me personally, I went from making like 50 to 100. And then together we tripled that the next year on our own. So
what timeline was this? Because was it 2018 that you moved over to KW, 2016?
So no, we hopped around to a few different brokerages. So I think I've been at all of them: Equity, Remax, ERA, I don't know, some other smaller ones. And before we landed here, and I really did like ERA. They had a lot of great systems, but what I was lacking there was I wanted to be surrounded by high producers. And there were a few at the office. There were some amazing people. I love them and I learned from them, but there's not a lot. And they were having me up there doing like presenting as a high producer. And I'm like, I sell like 10 deals a year. I'm not a high producer. You know, like if I'm considered a high producer, that's a problem. Like I felt. And so I started looking around for other brokerages that had more high producers, and Keller Williams has that. And I am an observer. And so when I am, you know, at places, I watch people and see what they're doing. And that's a lot how I learn. And so I knew that like if I was in a place where there were a lot of high producers, that I could learn from them, like just by osmosis, just being in the room, you know, like with them, I could learn. And but the one thing that was holding me back, this is funny, and this is totally real, it's all about the money. The one thing that was holding me back was the money, the cap. Because over there, it was a $12,000 cap with a 6% franchise fee, but it was in perpetuity, the 6%. I didn't understand that, how that worked. And so when I was looking at the numbers, I'm like 12,000, 15,000. It's cheaper over here. Everybody has a franchise fee, 6%, right? Well, I was talking to Cameron one day, and he said, Cameron Hyatt, and he's like, Courtney, no, that's not how it works. And he's like, look, and I was on track that year that was the year that I was on track to make $100,000. So I was close to like 10 million, I think, and or more, I don't know. Anyway, whatever it is that you have to make $100,000, whatever my
volume was.
My volume was, I don't know. Anyway, I was on track, and I looked back, and I had paid like $15,000 in franchise fees. So add that up, 15 plus 12, I was like 27K. And I was like, what? I didn't know there was a cap on the franchise fee over here. So it was cheaper. And the best deal was to come to Keller Williams money wise. I know some people like get caught up on the money and the caps and all that stuff, right? And I certainly was at that time. But now I recognize the value in that we're paying. Like there's so much that Keller Williams offers. It's so cheap to run a business.
So kind of walk me through this, because I'm curious about your business structure when you move to KW. One of the importance factors is the value you're providing to clients. So maybe just walk me through some of the communication commitments that you have to clients, and just how do you feel like you've serviced clients differently as your business has evolved?
Yes. So I learned about customer service. I learned that relationships are key to building a successful real estate business. And when I first was doing real estate, it was kind of transactional. In fact, there was a light bulb that went on one day for me. I was in a class with other real estate agents, and there was this one agent who'd been in the business a really long time. And she talked about this one time where she was at the post office and she ran into a past client, and they're like, oh, hey, you sold my house. And she's like, oh, really? What was your address? And she told a story, and I was like, what? You didn't know her? You only remembered the address? And that was like, I never want to go through life. I never want to run into a past client and not know their name and only know them by their address. And so from that moment on, I just made it all about them, the people that I was serving. Because we're in the service industry. We're here to serve our clients, and relationships are the biggest thing that we can do. We need to foster relationships with people, with our clients, and continue that. I get so many referrals just based off of my past clients.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the most important keys to just think about is we're in the business of sales, right?
Right.
And there's two kind of different types of sales. There's a very transactional based sale,
right,
which is good in other industries. That's good at the AT&T store when you need to go in and swap out your phone, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a relationship based sell. And that ultimately, there's kind of two different types of agents, those who focus on the transaction of like, I just need to close as many deals as possible. But what happens is they shortchange themselves in the longevity factor, right? Of realizing that people will buy and sell 5 to 7 homes throughout their lifetime. Yep. And so if we actually shift the question and start asking ourselves of how do I earn this client's business for life, right? It comes back down to a strategy of building an actual relationship, right?
Exactly.
So I'm just curious about what does that actually look like for you of connecting or nurturing your database to build those deep, meaningful connections so that you create a repeat and referral business.
So we have a variety of things that we do. I send out postcards to my SOI just about every month or every other month. I have a follow-up system, like my 36 touch plan basically, but it's more like, I don't know, 100 touch plan. We have events that we do, and I'm really excited for the Splash event. We did that 2 years in a row, and we didn't last year, and I regretted it last year, not doing Splash, because so many people were like, hey, what happened to the swim party? They love the swim party. And so I was like, okay, I got to get back on Splash this year because so many people wanted to come out to that. I am randomly driving down the road and I'll pass a client's house and I was like, oh, and I'll just, at the next stop sign or pull off or whatever, I'll send them a text. Hey, I just drove by your house. How are you doing? Like, to me, I send out texts every day. I'm on social media. I message people. Like every day I go through my, I don't know, we call this something in KW. I can't ever remember the name, but basically you go through the letters, the alphabet, right? And every day I send out 10 texts in my contacts, and I'm not asking for business or anything. I'm just like, hey, how are you doing? Thinking about you. And then it'll eventually circle around to business. People want to know what you're doing too. And one year it was like around Christmas, I think it was September, And where I was at the time, the broker said, hey, like right now determines how great of a Christmas you're going to have. And so what are you going to do to, have a really awesome Christmas this year for your family? And so I went through my whole contacts list in my phone, just sending texts out. Hi, how are you doing? I missed you. And I think I had like 3 or 4 sales that came from just that. And I didn't even ask him for a sale. I just was wanting to be a friend. So I think that is, but also like the experience that I offer, like I think about every transaction, I want to provide like the Nordstrom experience, for my clients, whether they're buying I don't know, $100,000 condo, even though you can't really find that anymore. But at one point, $100,000 condo to a $2 million house, I'm going to give them a luxury experience through the whole time. And so what does that look like? I try to create this like client journey for them where I'm like one lady, she's elderly. She had lost her husband, and she was miserable in her house. She was sad in her house and she wanted to move, but it's hard moving. It's hard making changes. All of the kids involved didn't want her to move. So it took like, I don't know, almost a year for her to decide to move. And that came off of an internet lead. Yes. So I met her at a house one day, showed her a house. And from then, like, I just started being friends with her, and I'd pop in and say hi when we'd go look at homes, when she'd see one that you would come up on the listing alerts, and she's like, hey, Courtney, can I go see this one? Sure. I'd show up with, she loves Diet Pepsi mixed with regular Pepsi, half and half with cherry. So I would show up with a sweet drink with the, half and half with cherry, or she also likes burgers. So we'd stop and get a burger. So I just find out things about people, what they like. And really, I'm just genuinely trying to be their friend,
I love that. And I think there's a few different skill sets that we can develop as agents. One of those is just being very aware of our clients and understanding who they are, what's important to them, what's valuable to them, right? And incorporating that into the transaction, into the process. And then another dynamic, I think, is just being an expert of the industry, right? And I think you've done a really great job at this. You talked about obviously being really a lifelong learner, right? And the shows, obviously, you went back to school and got your master's degree in real estate development recently, right? Mm-hmm. So when did you start that journey and what inspired that?
Yeah. So I started that in 2021, and it came from, we were out showing some luxury townhomes, the rooftops up in like the Holiday area. And Ben and I were out, we were looking at these condos for some clients who were out of state, and we were taking videos, and this young girl, I don't know, mid-20s, shows up in this cute little Jeep. She hops out, and she's showing us all around. And at the end, we're like, hey, this is so awesome. How did you get this gig as the realtor representing this builder? And she's like, oh, I'm not the realtor. I'm the developer. Ben and I we were like, what? We're like 40 something over here, and she's like 20. And so then I was like, okay, maybe it's a family business, maybe that. Nope. And so I was like, well, what did you do? How did you learn all this stuff? So she's like, oh, I'm in the MRED program. We're like, well, what's that? Masters of Real Estate Development. And where is that? The University of Utah. I had no idea that even existed. And that just started, we know how to sell homes, we know how to build homes, but we never understood how to like talk to a bank and get money to fund deals. And that was something that we've always wanted to do, is build, and develop on our own. And so the wheels started turning. I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh, and she said she had gone through the program, and how they built this project is she had entered into the Utah Real Estate Challenge, and her team won, and they got funding to build their project. And I was like, that is cool. I'm doing that. And so it took me a while to like really think. I was like, no, I shouldn't do that. Like, I have kids at home. We have our business. We just so many things in life. And then at the last minute before it was due to, to apply, I hurried and did it. I was up in in my back office, actually where Dean's office, I had his office at one point, and I was back there recording my video, submitting everything to apply. And yeah, I did it. And it has been the best thing. And for me, I feel like that has really helped me in so many ways with my business. Adding value in my knowledge about real estate, not just for like people who are looking for a home, but investors. I didn't know how the money worked on those deals. And now I understand it. And I feel like, and it actually has opened the door for us with the commercial side of business. So,
yeah. And I think that ties in perfectly. So the first, strategy as an agent is focusing on the relationships. How do I build great relationships? The second one is how do I really become a master and understand the real estate market as a whole? And I don't think everybody obviously should go through the MRED program. Yeah. That's pretty intense. But at least being a student of Utah real estate, understanding the metrics that move our market, understanding how to actually communicate that to clients. So I'm just curious about how just your understanding of the real estate space as a whole has actually impacted your client experience and given them a better experience in making educated decisions.
Well, I definitely think that they view me more as an expert now. Even without the master's degree in real estate development, I'm always looking for ways to hone my craft and to learn more about loans and to learn more about just the real estate market in general, like what's going on in the market, so that I can educate my clients, because what I feel like in order to properly serve them, I have to educate them on the full picture of what's going on in today's market. And also I've been able to get deals by obviously I'm not a lender. And I'm not going to recommend like certain loan programs for them, but just having a general knowledge of what kind of programs are out there has helped me to close deals that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to do, just simply knowing, oh, hey, there's this program out there. Maybe you should talk to a lender and see if that would work for you, and where people have been able to get in no money down, So I feel like they view me more as an expert, and there's that credibility aspect, I guess, that comes from my education and my experience, like all of that. I feel like I don't have to prove my value so much anymore. Like it's there. Yeah. because of that, the education that I put so much time and effort into.
Totally. And I think it actually makes business so much easier when we just simply consult our clients rather than trying to sell them.
Yes.
We just educate them.
And I would say also my confidence has leveled up. And I think that's also another way why they maybe have confidence in me, because I have confidence in me.
Does that make sense? You feel like that's grown as you've studied more of the market and understand the metrics behind what moves the market? Cool. Awesome. Well, just for time's sake, I know we had some other questions, but I think if you could just maybe share any final words of encouragement of just navigating, building a big business, where would you tell agents to focus their attention, their energy?
Well, first I would say don't give up. Real estate's the long game. And if you're willing to put in the time and energy and effort and learn all you can, like it'll come for you. It'll come for you. Obviously, on that chart that you put up, the learning, the working and stuff, at some point you have to act. You can't learn forever. I mean, you can learn forever, but you've got to act, in the middle of it. Otherwise, I guess it won't ever happen. So I think, and then the second thing is to don't be afraid of your sphere. Your relationships, building those relationships and fostering those relationships, and reaching out and tapping into your sphere of influence. I was very afraid of that when I first got started into real estate. And now when I look at my business, I have my little spreadsheet, and I actually, at the beginning of the year, the end of the year, Ben and I were looking at our spreadsheet, and out of 50 some odd deals, I want to say 75% of them came from our sphere and past client referrals. So you have a gold mine. You have a gold mine. It's like diamonds in your backyard. You just got to mine it. So I guess that would be my word
Awesome.
of wisdom.
Awesome. Well, one thing I want to appreciate about Courtney, for those of you who don't know, she actually is our ALC chair committee for our education committee here at KW Westfield. So we have the Agent Leadership Council, which is essentially our board of directors, and we hand select 12 new individuals each year to be on that board of directors to help guide the brokerage, which is very different than other ecosystems. And so we want direct input from our agents on how we should set things up to make agents experience the best possible. And so Courtney has been very helpful with making sure that our training calendar is top notch. So all of the trainings that you see on there, the listing series that we have going on right now, all of those things in due part are from Courtney giving us some really good ideas on how we can make sure that our training calendar is packed with value. So we just want to say thank you for helping us with that this year.
Thank you for having me on that. And I want to put in a plug for Lee Stern too. Okay, so that was another reason why I joined Keller Williams is I came to a Lee Stern training. It wasn't her four-part series. It was one class. And at the end of that class, I was like, I need everything that she's offering. What do I have to do to get this information? And I think Josh Barrett at the time, he's like, you got to join KW. I was like, done. Check. And then she offered the four-part series. And I'm like, Ben, you have to go. And so when we went through the whole training there. And so if you have not started that training, you really got to go. It's okay if you've missed the first two classes. The last two are incredible. Go. Don't miss.
Absolutely. Mondays at 10 a.m. here in the large training room. So we have Lee for 2 more weeks. So please take advantage of that. Be here. And then we are skipping the series for July. Just everybody, there's going to be a lot of travels, obviously. So we will pick up a new series in August. We will announce that at the end of this month of what it's going to be, but super excited about that new series we're going to kick off in August. So Awesome. Thank you, Courtney. Give her a hand.
Thank you, Shoni.